we've seen just how normalized transgender ideology has become in our society, as even the military has routinely hosted drag queen story hours for children on military bases. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Matt Gaetz, who successfully challenged military leadership today over their embrace of transgenderism and woke ideology. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee and the House Judiciary Committee. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Florida. Congressman Gaetz, welcome to Washington Watch.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Tony.
So this transgender ideology has infiltrated almost every aspect of our society. And while there's still much to learn about the shooting earlier this week in Nashville, it appears that it was part of the motivation there for killing 3 children and 3 adults. But this ideology has also invaded our military. You questioned Pentagon leadership about that earlier today. Tell us what happened.
Well, President Biden has submitted a budget that has $70 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And so I traced how some of that money had been used in prior budgets, and I found a series of festivals and events where drag queens were brought in to bring stories to children. And that's particularly troubling to me because it must be very confusing for a child that understands the concept of mother and father by nature, by their very existence, then having to come into contact with a gender dysphoric individual. I'm very troubled by that. I didn't want it to happen on military bases. And I'm worried, Tony, that when we focus on these frivolous things, we're not doing the really important work within military personnel to recruit and retain the best and brightest so that America always holds the high ground. And so I asked Secretary Austin and General Milley why taxpayers should have to fund these drag queen performances for children. And somewhat surprisingly, they didn't defend the conduct. They acknowledged that it was wrong. And to their credit, they said if I brought them examples of where this was happening on installations, that they would use their power to stop it. So in a world of divided government where Joe Biden's the president, I guess that counts as a win for the day. But we've got to remain diligent that in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we don't create a more divisive and a less welcoming fighting force. We're really, really struggling with recruiting. And we've always been a nation that has had different contributions from different regions of the country to the fighting force. The American South, the American Southeast make an oversized contribution to that fight. And so when values are presented that are antithetical to the values that a lot of people grew up with, then I think that can really have an impact on readiness as well as our culture.
So I want to be real clear on this. Secretary Austin, General Milley said that if they're aware of this, you bring them the examples, and if they have the authority, they'll stop it. Well, I would assume as Secretary of Defense and as the Joint Chief, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, they have the authority. So are you confident that we're going to see this type of craziness rolled back on our military bases?
Trust but verify, a great leader once said. And so we're asking folks who experience this divisive wokeness to go to gates.house.gov, share with us the information so we can bring it forward, highlight it, and then defund it. Get rid of the authorities that even allow this nonsense, whether it's dividing people on gender or on race or on belief. I oppose that. I think that one of the remarkable things about our military is that they are in a community of common fate. Included in that is a common sense of mission and patriotism and love of country, and driving a DEI agenda into the military actually has the opposite effect of what some of those people think it might.
Yeah. Well, let me first just say thank you and applaud your efforts in focusing on this, because some don't want to touch it, but I'm with you. I think it is absolutely important that our military focus on its mission, and that is fighting and winning wars, not promoting drag queen story hours and the rest of this woke agenda. Congressman, I want to switch topics for a moment. Senator Tommy Tuberville is in a standoff with the Pentagon leadership over the military's illegal abortion policy. He's using the Senate's power to promote flag officers to get the Department of Defense to retreat from this abortion-promoting policy. I believe, I didn't watch all of the committee hearing today, but I believe that topic came up. Any movement there?
Well, I would ask all of your viewers to pray for strength for Senator Tuberville. I stand with him, and there is immense pressure on him from Democrat senators, Republican senators, lobbyists, the military-industrial complex to cave. But what Senator Tuberville is doing is righteous. He is making sure that our money that we pay in taxes is not being used to facilitate abortions through travel and reimbursement. This is something our military never would have done before because it is against federal law to use taxpayer funding for abortions. And when the Department of Defense just ignores federal law because they're in some spasm in response to the Dobbs decision, that should not allow things to just remain as normal. One of the accountability tools that senators have is to put a hold on promotions. And if this is going to be a Department of Defense that violates federal law, that takes away our right to reserve our nation's funds away from the abortion enterprise, then maybe they shouldn't have their billets filled and should not have their requests met. And so I am so proud of Senator Tuberville, and I know that he gains strength through the prayer of others. And that would be my request to your viewers.
And we are certainly doing that. And folks, we've gathered about 20,000 of you have signed the petition of support for the senator, which we're going to deliver to him. So if you'd like to join that, text the word PROTECT. Text the word PROTECT to 67742. That's 67742, the word PROTECT. And we're going to get that to him. Congressman, the Senate has that ability when it comes to promotions. They're the ones that advance those, confirming those promotions. But the House, under Republican leadership, really is controlling the purse strings. So do the two levers we have there over the Department of Defense, are we going to see some action by them in moving away from these harmful policies?
Well, Kevin McCarthy said that we will use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. And at times those have to go hand in hand for us to assess who is making the decision to flaunt federal law on abortion or to host drag queen story hours for children on military bases. And we've actually developed tools during the contest for the speaker's race to identify those specific bureaucrats and then zero out their salary. So that's how we're able to weave together the investigatory powers with some of those powers of the purse. And in the past, Republicans have been all too willing to just vote on some omnibus bill that is thousands of pages that we just get a few hours to read before enactment. But we got concessions in January as a part of the speaker's contest to have individual review of this legislation and the funding streams. And that gives us the ability to hold people accountable with dollars.
And so far, that's exactly what Republicans are doing. They're moving down that path. And again, I was one of those that was saying what was unfolding in that speaker's race, the outcome was going to be good. And I think we're in a good place, at least the Republicans are at this point. Congressman Matt Gaetz, out of time, but I want to thank you for joining us. And again, thanks for standing up and defending the values that made this country great.
My pleasure. It's an honor, Tony. Thank you.